Welcome to an Eyes on EB exclusive, Stirring the Pot with Rob W.
Hello, everybody. It's Rob W. from Eyes on EB, and we have a special guest today, Mark Sher, who the infamous BusGate video from, what was it, 2022?
It was February 25th of 2020.
Okay, you know exact date. And if you don't know what's going on, as a lot of people do, as far as the transportation department with the BOE, a lot of people have a lot of problems with it, and it's hard to get answers. And at the recent BOE meeting, on, I believe it was September 26th of 2024, they played the infamous video
this past Thursday.
Of what happened. And
it was a little more than just playing the video.
Right. There's some narratives to it. And when I saw it, I was a little taken back, to be perfectly honest. And right away I thought, what led up to this? Because you just don't do something like that, right? So obviously something probably led up to it, and that's why you're here.
Sure. I wanted to, I feel like I feel like I was attacked. Mm-hmm. Indirectly, my family was attacked at the board meeting, and I think anyone that looks at that video would have a very big problem with what happened in the video. I mean, what you see in the video doesn't look good.
Right.
It certainly doesn't look good. But yeah, is there a story behind it? Of course there's a story behind it.
Yeah, and we would love to hear it. The community would love to hear it.
But I want to first acknowledge the fact that I was accused of breaking the law.
Right.
I absolutely did. I'm not disputing the fact that I broke the law. I'm not disputing the fact that these charges were filed, and I'm not disputing the fact that the judge in municipal court found me guilty of those charges. And we'll talk about the sentence and punishment that I was given following this. So I think that's relevant also. But I want to get to what really happened here.
Sure.
So there was an incident prior to this where I had some communication with the transportation department. So it predated February 25th, 2022. So I just want to touch on that.
Sure.
All right. It was COVID. Kids were wearing masks. I was new to the district. We had just bought the house on Falcon Road in June of 2020. So we were. I didn't really know anybody. I didn't. I think I met the bus driver once. So there was one day that both kids were at Memorial, and they were running late to the stop. It was one of them forgot their mask. So they run inside, they're out on the lawn doing their masks. I see their bus that stops at the corner of Woodlot and Falcon Road was driving by the house. She stopped for a half a second. She saw that I was still putting on a mask on my younger daughter. And then all of a sudden she takes off. And I was like, I said, hey, whoa, what are you doing? We're right here. And then she stops and the kids get on the bus. I didn't think it was much of a problem. Right.
Which is really strange, by the way, because I drive to my office at that time. The buses are sitting there for sometimes, it seems like 3 minutes.
Well, it wasn't, I don't know how long she was stopped prior to leaving the stop.
Right. And
then slowing down in front of my house. But she did slow down in front of my house and came to a brief stop.
And just took off.
I'm getting the mask onto Hattie. And all of a sudden she takes off, and she took off a little abruptly. It seemed hostile. So I was more focused on getting the kids on the bus. I was like, hey, what are you doing? And I guess I yelled a lot louder than that. And the kids proceeded to run. She ended up stopping, I guess, a little further down the road. The kids got onto the bus. I thought it was over. I would say maybe a half an hour later, I get a call from the counselor at Memorial. And I think she was on the phone with the principal as well. Two of them called me, and they tell me that the girls got off the bus very upset. One of them was crying, and they wanted to know what happened. So apparently the bus driver scolded them. She was nasty to them. I was furious.
Right.
All right. I got a call from the counselors about, I was upset about the bus, what happened in front of my house. And I was upset that I got a call that my younger daughter was crying when she got off the bus, and the school had to call me about it.
And how old?
At the time, let's see, this was in 2020. So Hattie was 6.
Okay.
All right.
That's young.
That's young. I was upset when I got the call. In response to that, I called the transportation department, and I was put in touch with Joyce Forsberg. And, I I may not have been very friendly on the phone. I accept that. I said that I wasn't happy. How dare they have a bus driver upset my kids? I want another driver on the stop.
We've all been there.
She didn't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
I said, but that's, I'm not taking no for an answer. It's unacceptable. Okay, she's like, well, there's nothing I'm going to do. I said, you know what, I want to talk to your supervisor. She said, well, you're going to have to talk to Mr. Guliana. I said, well, then let's talk to Mr. Guliana. I spoke with Bernardo Guliana. I explained to him what happened. He was, I remember him speaking kind of slowly when we were on the phone. He was understanding, and he wanted to come up with an amicable solution. He was explaining to me the complexities in switching bus drivers, this and that, and he committed to arranging a meeting for the bus driver, whose name is April. And I just want to, before I say anything else regarding April, since that time, April was wonderful, and Hattie couldn't rave enough about how much she loved her bus driver.
That's really good to hear.
She was awesome.
Yeah, that's nice to hear.
And I'm very grateful to April. And if I never thanked April, it was probably because I had all of this trouble with the bus driver subsequent to that. I knew it was Hattie's last day with April just last year. But thank you, April, for being so nice to Hattie and making her feel so good on the bus.
That's awesome.
So Mr. Guliana arranged for April to have a meeting with my kids and a counselor at Memorial, and where from what I understand, was apologetic. The problem was resolved. I didn't really think about it, and Mr. Guliana even took the time to call and follow up.
Okay.
I appreciated that. All right, so that's October of 2020. Nothing happened since that time. I don't really pay much attention to what goes on with the school bus. At least I didn't until February 25th.
Yeah, it's not like you were having problems every other week.
There was no problem.
Yeah.
Of course not. We were in Edison prior to this, and I was at the bus almost every day, and there was never an issue with the bus. I mean, this was hundreds upon hundreds of bus trips. And I was my older daughter came over here. I think she entered Memorial I guess she was in the 5th grade.
Right.
All right. So I never had any bus issues prior to this. So let's fast forward to February 25th, 2022. School was delayed for inclement weather. So we weren't at the stop at the normal time. It was cold. It was rainy. I mean, when they delay school, it's not because it's because it's sunny and warm.
Yeah, you can see that on the video too.
Right. It's because there's a problem. And Zori, not so much Hattie, really wanted to wait in the car at the stop. I was totally annoyed, but I shouldn't have been. I didn't show them that. I said, of course you're going to wait in the car with me. I wanted to get to work. They get into the car, we turn around, I make sure we're right at the bus stop and right where we're supposed to be. And we were waiting for the bus to come around. I was looking in the rearview mirror to make sure, because I was facing I wasn't facing the direction from which the bus was coming. I was facing a direction that would have made it more convenient for me to just drive home. The bus comes around the car, stops. I say, "It's okay, Zori, time to get out of the car." She gets out of the car, she starts walking towards the bus. The bus took off.
How far was she from the bus?
It wasn't that far.
I mean, was it dangerous? I mean, it sounds like...
No, if you see the video, you'll see where my car was parked.
I saw that. It was like...
The bus stop it's known as the Woodlot stop, and it's right on the corner of Woodlot Road and Falcon Road. So my car was right there. So where he gets out, walks towards the bus, and I just assumed she'd get on the bus.
Of course.
Then the bus takes off. She comes back to the car. She's like, "Dad, the bus left me behind." I didn't even believe her that it was her bus.
Right.
How could I believe? Because I also knew that Hatikva had a bus coming at a similar time. So I just assumed it was the Hatikva bus. So I said, "Dory, it couldn't have been your bus." She's like, "Daddy, it was my bus." I said, "Are you sure that was your bus?" She's getting very upset. She's like, "Dad, it was my bus." Now I'm getting concerned, because I saw her right at the bus.
Yeah.
I'm a very mindful driver, especially around kids, in parking lots, whatever. I go very, very slowly. I want to make sure no one's around me. I even have this little mantra that I say to myself around people: there's nothing more precious than human life. I'm like really, really careful with my car, and I expect bus drivers to be just as careful as I am. Maybe that's an unrealistic expectation.
Shouldn't be.
And that was my expectation.
Sure.
I never expected that my daughter could get left behind at the stop when my car's right there, and it should have, my car's not normally on that corner, and this driver, comes this way. This is February into the school year, so should be familiar with what cars are normally parked there, and she probably should have seen that the lights were on in the car. I think it would have been a natural assumption that a kid was waiting inside the car, but in this case, unfortunately, it wasn't. So Zori goes and after she, insists that it's her bus, she goes and starts running across, she starts running across a lawn, trying to catch up to the bus. I'm thinking, what do I do? The bus driver missed my kid. Either she's drunk, she's having a medical issue, she's just totally negligent, and I panicked for a second. I said, what's the right move here? Should I just let this bus go, or should I see what's going on? I knew there were other kids on the bus. I was under a lot of pressure. I didn't know what to do. I decided to go after the bus. I mean, I certainly wasn't speeding. In fact, I was even asked about that in court. They're like, well, how could you have caught up to the bus? There was another stop between my stop and the stop at which I stopped the bus. So my stop was at the corner of Woodlot and Falcon. There's another stop on the corner of Colonial and Redcoat. And there's another stop on Colonial at, it's New something or other. I forgot the name of the street, but whatever. There was another stop in front. So I'm behind the bus. And once I got into the bus within my eyesight, I started honking at the bus.
Right.
I assumed she would just pull over and know that I was a parent. She doesn't pull over, and then I see the bus. It was like it just made some strange moves, and I just got even more concerned. So I mean,
what kind of moves?
The bus. It wasn't really it wasn't on the right side of the road. It was driving in the middle, and it seemed to swerve a little bit. You'd see it on the video.
Yeah.
It was all kind of strange. And if you couple that with the fact that she left Zori behind at the stop, it had me even more concerned. And I mean, and I'm, I think ahead. I look at everything.
Sure.
I mean, for lack of a better term, holistically. I mean, maybe that is the best term. I look at everything that's involved here. Okay, so I'm thinking if the bus driver did something negligent just a few minutes ago, anything could happen going forward. So I didn't know what to do other than to confront the driver. My younger daughter was in the back of the car screaming. I decided that when the school bus was stopped to pull around, I made sure that, I was very, very careful. I can't say that I remember every second by second. This was a long time ago. There was no one in my way as I was moving my car. And if I saw someone, I would have come to a dead stop.
Of course. Yeah.
All right. I did, the bus at one point, the back of the bus was close to the curb, and for a moment I didn't want to damage my tire, so I did go up onto the cobblestone for maybe a second. All right, and I know that Mr. Guliana during his presentation or attack on me said I drove on the sidewalk.
Yes,
there was no driving on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
My car did go onto the cobblestone.
That's the part that disturbed me the most. That's the only part that really disturbed me, when he made it sound like you were on the grass, like all the way, like all four wheels. I mean,
there's no video of that. There's no one that ever saw that. The only reason they even know anything about that is because I volunteered that information.
Oh, wow. Right, they made it sound like you were driving on the side.
I'm sure Mr. Guliana did everything he could to support his position, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
I'm just here to explain what happened from my point of view. It's unfortunate that I have to do this, but I was attacked at a board meeting, and only this part of the video was shown with nothing about me and my perspective. So let's go on to what happened. I pull around to the bus. I got in front of the bus. No question I was in front of the bus. I obstructed the bus. I very calmly got out of my car, which you'll see. I went over to the bus driver and I said, you left my daughter behind at the bus. And it was kind of hard to understand her because she was wearing a mask. But I think she asked me who my daughter was, and I said Zori. And she's like, she still didn't seem to know who it was. So then I questioned again, was my daughter mistaken? Was this really her bus?
Right.
Then I saw another bus pull up behind that bus. And these buses look exactly the same.
Sure.
I'm not paying attention to the numbers on the bus. So I went a little bit closer to that bus, and I said, "Where are you going? Is Zori on that bus?" And they said, I think they said Hatikva or something. It was clear that Zori wasn't on that bus. I got right back into my car. I went to go turn around and get Zori. The last thing I wanted to do was keep the bus stopped and wait for Zori to catch up. It would have been, well, that wouldn't have been fair to the kids on the bus, to the bus driver, or anyone. The bus driver responded to me when I asked her why she left Zori behind. She didn't seem medically compromised. I didn't think there was any imminent threat, so there was no reason for me to not move out of the way, even though I thought that leaving her behind was grossly negligent. So got Zori to school, got Hattie to school. I came back. The first thing I did was I sent an email to Bernardo Guliana. I said, "Mr. Guliana, please call me regarding an incident that happened on the bus today." And he called me later that day. I explained what happened. I was the first one to volunteer that, this is how I felt. I was so concerned that I even, I had to get my car up onto the curb for a minute. I got around, I saw the bus driver wasn't paying attention, but it was, this was scary. And I said, imagine if there were other kids at the bus stop, or a kid was chasing a ball under the, this is dangerous. I had no idea at the time how short a period of time the bus was stopped for. I just knew that something didn't look right. I didn't get a timeline. So Guliana proceeds to, he starts yelling at me and going off and this and that. And I couldn't even believe he was serious. So I started laughing. I'm like, all right, you know what? Don't worry. I'm not going to chase your buses anymore. Okay. It's a good thing everyone was safe. And I really thought that was, he said he would, I requested an investigation, and apparently I'm not sure what they investigated other than me.
Right.
But I hadn't heard back. I didn't think anything was going to happen. So a couple weeks later, I get a letter in the mail. It's a very nasty letter from Bernardo Guliana that I'd be happy to share with anyone that wants to read it. And it included a timeline of everything that happened with the bus. And he's telling me that they have no choice to pursue legal action. So I'm looking at the timeline, and I see how long the bus was stopped for. 16 seconds.
Yeah, it didn't even seem like that. That's quick.
Clocks don't lie.
Yeah.
So the time was 16 seconds. And then it dawned upon me that, well, something was wrong here. And I figured Guliana had to have missed the fact that the bus was only stopped for 16 seconds. How could he be accusing me of doing something so terrible? The bus was stopped for 16 seconds. So in that 16-second time frame, if the bus driver was acting in accordance with the law and CDL guidelines, she would have loaded, so two kids loaded the bus. So they would have needed to, and they need to be at least 10 feet from the bus. Even if they weren't 10 feet from the bus as required, and they were less, they still needed to get onto the bus. They needed to get seated, and it's the bus driver's responsibility to at least ask them to put their seatbelts on. Mm-hmm. And I would imagine she should watch to see if she does. She certainly can't monitor every kid, but she should be asking them at least to put their seatbelts on.
Yeah, reminding them.
All right. We didn't see that on the video. We just saw the 16 seconds. And on top of that, according to CDL guidelines, the bus driver, upon having the kids loaded onto the bus, needs to check her surroundings. So that means all the mirrors. From what I saw, there were 5 mirrors on the bus, right? We've got one in the center that's right near where she's driving. Then there's 2 where we normally have them on our cars. And then there's blind spot mirrors further up on the hood of the bus. So she can really get a feel of her surroundings. So she's responsible, according to the CDL guidelines. I'm not sure if that's law, but just commercial driver's license guidelines. She's responsible to check the surroundings. And I got this from, I believe it was some form from the state, section 10.2.2. And again, this is something I can share with you or anyone else.
Yeah, I'll have a downloadable link for everybody if they want to read everything.
Sure. So and this is what sets forth the driver's responsibility when they're loading. Mm-hmm. All right. And again, none of this takes away the fact that I broke the law. I definitely broke the law. So once I got this letter, I realized that, they're going to probably press charges against me. I wasn't sure. I left a message for Guliana, and I said, Bernardo, you sent me this letter, and it's really demonstrating your own negligence. You you're making all these accusations. I don't remember what I said. Maybe he saved the recording. But I definitely said that this letter demonstrates your own negligence. You were stopped for 16 seconds.
And how long are they supposed to stop again for?
Well, according to Joyce Forsberg, she's the transportation manager, and she's the one that filed the complaints. We have her on a police video. And the police detective, Brian Adams, he was involved in this too. And I really have no problems with Brian Adams. He's a wonderful guy. He's a part of the community. The only time I saw him in person was in court. I have nothing against him whatsoever, and I think he was doing his job. But he goes on he interviews Audrey Maxwell, the driver, and he interviews Joyce Forsberg. Joyce Forsberg, in her police interview, was asked how long the school bus should have been stopped for under those circumstances, and she gave a spectrum. And the minimum amount of time, based on what she said, would have been 30 seconds.
Oh, wow.
That's for 2 kids.
Yeah.
So 16 seconds would be, what is that? More than 40%. I think close to 50% less than the minimum amount of time. And the maximum window she had was 42 seconds.
Oh.
She said, because I think she was asked a 2-part question. How long is the bus supposed to be stopped? And how long for each child that boards? So she said between X number of seconds and X number of seconds, and what it added up to was a range between 30 seconds and 42 seconds.
Gotcha.
That didn't stop all of this from moving forward. So I got some tickets in the mail. There were 4 traffic tickets that were filed by Joyce Forsberg as a private citizen.
Okay.
And they were for reckless driving, improper passing, obstruction of traffic, and passing a school bus. It was very, my nerves were shaken. I wasn't sure what to do. I called an attorney who's a friend of mine from when I was in the Edison Chamber of Commerce. Mm-hmm. And I said, I need help. He's a defense attorney, Eric Morrell, wonderful guy. I said, Eric, this is madness. I mean, I really just thought the bus driver was doing something wrong. I thought the right thing to do was to make sure she wasn't posing a danger. Clearly, I have a problem here. I need some help. So, Eric gets involved. He starts making some calls. And I said, you know what, Eric, I'm just going to call. I'm going to see if I can get in touch with the school board president. So in comes Lori Locks. I sent Lori a Facebook message, and I explained the situation to her. She called me back. She was very gracious on the phone. We really had a nice conversation. She was a sweetheart. I explained everything that happened, and I said, Lori, I just want to understand your perspective. If I believed something was wrong with a bus driver and I stopped the bus, and there was in fact something wrong with that driver, would that have been considered a heroic move? She said, well, of course. I said, okay. Well, and I explained that I didn't think there was something wrong with the driver, but I explained the charges that were against me, that I didn't know what to do, that I needed help. She's the school board president. I was very thankful for the fact that she got back to me. I said, I'd really like to sit down with Mr. Guliana and either the superintendent or the transportation manager. I'd really like to talk this out. And she's like, okay, I'll see what I can do. I had a subsequent conversation with her. It was either a subsequent conversation or a subsequent email where she said she hadn't gotten to it yet. But then there was a follow-up conversation. And she wasn't comfortable setting up the meeting.
Okay.
And I said, Lori, this is important. I mean, these charges against me are kind of serious. I'd really like you to try. I mean, I'm a parent in the district. You're the school board president. I mean, let's see if we can come to a reasonable resolution to this problem. Then she sends me an email and says, this is a legal issue. I need to stay out of it. Mm-hmm. I said, understood and respected. And I was going to leave her alone from there regarding that issue. I didn't want to, if she was told that she couldn't talk to me because charges were filed, that was fine.
Right.
But then some other issues started surfacing. I wasn't really paying attention, and I probably wouldn't have been paying attention had it not been for what happened. But my daughter was telling me that the bus driver sometimes takes off before she's seated.
Oh, wow.
I was asking her if the bus driver requires a seatbelt. Never. And, this isn't normal. So I sent emails. A lot of them were sent to Matthew Giacobbe. He's the school board
lawyer
attorney, right? I copied Lori Locks, and I would cite instances where either my daughter was not seated prior to the driver resuming her route, or where the driver didn't require the kids to put on their seatbelts. And all I asked was that going forward, and I would always use the same phraseology. I always requested for assurance that going forward, the school buses would be operated in a safe and responsible manner. That's all I wanted.
Right.
That's it. I mean, I wasn't paying attention before. Now they have my attention. Now I know what's going on. And I'm not getting that assurance. So we've got a court date in April for the traffic charges. I go with my attorney, Eric Morell. He sits down with the prosecutor. We just wanted everything dropped. The prosecutor said, well, you have to plead to reckless driving. Otherwise, there's no deal. I said, I just can't plead to that.
Oh, wow.
I'm not going to plead to reckless driving. There was nothing reckless about what I did. And what I did was the opposite of reckless. I mean, I acknowledge that I definitely broke the law.
Right.
But I certainly I didn't feel what I did was reckless because I was very careful with what I did. And I really wanted an opportunity to tell my story. Okay, so I wouldn't plead guilty to anything, so there has to be a trial date scheduled. But something happened. Following my refusal to plead guilty, additional charges were brought against me.
Oh.
But they weren't traffic charges. They were disorderly persons charges. There were two of them. There was one disorderly persons charges that was just a general disorderly persons charge. And there was another one that was known as a petty disorderly persons charge.
And who did these?
Well, it was filed by Brian Adams.
Oh, wow.
But what was interesting was that they weren't entered as charges against me until like a day or two later. I don't even know if it was the same day that I refused to plead not guilty. And we knew that Bernardo Guliana was very involved in all of this.
Okay.
And the attorney handling it on behalf of the board was Mitchell Jacobs. Okay. And he had a conversation with my attorney. And, my attorney just said, this is a little heavy-handed here. And he acknowledged that it was heavy-handed. He said he had a difficult client. Eric said, I have a difficult client. What are we going to do here? It looks to me like it was malicious.
Yes.
We won't know that until, we're going through an appeals process. I have the right to do that.
Yeah.
If we prevail in the appeal, we will certainly investigate whether or not there was the charges were filed vindictively. And I certainly hope they weren't, but it looks like they were.
Yeah, it makes no sense to making a bad situation worse for you. I mean,
It seems to be it seems to be the norm, at least in this situation.
Right.
But that was what happened. They upped the ante to include criminal charges, and then I was shaken by this. I mean, I got up and spoke at a board meeting. Guliana was certainly not very happy with me, and the criminal charges were filed following my showing up at a board meeting. I showed up at the board meeting in April of 2022.
Oh.
And I said to Guliana, I said, "You're the one that was negligent, Mr. Guliana." And you could tell he was angry with me.
Wow.
So it's certainly possible and understandable if Guliana was retaliating against me by making sure that the criminal charge was filed, but we won't know that until that's investigated.
It certainly sounds like it, but like you said,
it sounds like it, but we don't know. It hasn't been proven. It just looks like it.
Right.
All right. So now I have to put up a greater defense. It's costing me more money. It's kind of annoying. It's costing a lot of time. We went to court a few more times, but what was really bothering me was the fact that I kept complaining about these issues on the bus with they're not asking Zora to put her seatbelt on. There was no problem on Hattie's bus. It was just the bus going to Hammarskjold. And on occasion, the bus would take off without her being seated. I didn't like it. I spoke with some neighbors about it. And one neighbor said, I have a story.
Oh.
Yeah. So we wanted to go to the Superior Court, and we wanted to have the charges dismissed as a de minimis charge. And I asked my neighbor to write a story about what happened. It turns out that her daughter, who was on the same bus, she had a similar experience to where the bus took off and she wasn't seated yet. Only according to this mother, who she put this in writing, I mean, I didn't see this happen. According to the mother, her daughter fell on the bus as a result of the driver not making sure she was seated. And even worse than that, this child was already injured and was wearing a boot on her foot.
Oh.
So, and this happened in the spring of 22. Again, I didn't see this happen. I only have a letter from a mother to the judge. I don't want to disclose who it was.
Sure.
I mean, if she wanted to make herself known, I'm sure she would. But this is what she's claiming. Her daughter was on the bus. The bus took off before she was seated. She fell, and at the time she fell, she was wearing a boot on her foot. I sent a copy of this letter to the board, to Lori Locks. I said, listen, my problem isn't the only problem. I keep complaining about, I don't know if I used these words, but the gist of what I was saying again and again and again was that the bus driver isn't requiring seatbelts, and the bus driver is sometimes taking off before my daughter is seated. You got to do something. Please provide me with assurance that the school buses will be operated in a safe and responsible manner. Nothing.
Yeah. And they went out of the way at the BOE meeting to make such a big deal out of bus safety, but yet they're not helping when people, and you're not the only one. People have reached out to me knowing I was talking to you.
People have reached out to me on private messages. I mean, a whole bunch of stuff has happened since this time.
Yeah.
So let's go to September of 2022. All right. So we've had court hearings. We've had multiple emails sent by me about incidents that were unrelated to the charges. I had every right to complain about these charges. And I received a letter from the attorney telling me not to reach out to any school administrators. I got a cease and desist letter.
Okay.
All right. I responded basically saying that I will not reach out to school administrators, but I will absolutely continue to post on social media. It's my First Amendment right. Excuse me. And I will absolutely continue to contact my elected officials as I deem appropriate, which I did. So September of 2022, this is the beginning of the school year. And this is the same school year where we had the school bus shortage.
Right.
That no one told anyone about.
Yeah.
So we could have known over the summer and made alternative plans, or they could have asked parents in the community if they were qualified to drive a bus. They could have taken some proactive measures to see that we had to mitigate the problem. To the best of my knowledge, they did nothing. So we were surprised with this problem. But Zori's driver begins moving the bus before she's seated. And now she's at I think she's at a different school now. Now she moved up to Churchill, right? I think she was at Churchill. But so I sent a letter to Joyce Forsberg, and I was so concerned about writing to Joyce Forsberg because I got the cease and desist, and she was a complaining witness, so I had to be very careful. So I just addressed the email as Dear East Brunswick Transportation Department, and I quoted what the attorney said. Just to make sure that I wasn't interfering with a complaining witness, because that was the last thing I wanted to do. And I made her aware of the fact that my daughter was on a bus and the bus resumed its route before she was seated. I think that's a legitimate concern. Am I wrong?
No, absolutely.
All right. So the email was ignored. 2 weeks go by, and I sent a follow-up email, and I think this time I copied some people. And again, this is all fact checkable.
Right.
All right. I've got emails to prove this. I sent another email to Ms. Forsberg or the East Brunswick Transportation Department. And I said, 2 weeks ago, I sent you this email. And, nothing's happened. I got no response. And I don't understand how this could be happening after so many complaints have been filed about similar incidents. She did respond this time. She said, rather than addressing it thoroughly, she wrote to me that my concern has been investigated and addressed. So basically, she to me, that means she investigated what happened on the date of the complaint, and she addressed the issue with the driver. That's what it said to me. It was a very vague response. It was surprisingly vague, but it's also to Ms. Forsberg's credit, she may have been instructed to only communicate with me on a limited basis.
Right.
And I want to make it clear that I have no ill will towards Ms. Forsberg for any of this. She has a tremendous responsibility. She really does a lot of good for the district. She's got a lot of pressure on her. And I think if there is any dysfunction in the transportation department, it's as a result of the administrators that are responsible for directing the transportation department, setting guidelines for them, giving them a budget. So Ms. Forsberg has to work within the resources she's given and the guidelines that she's given. She needs to do her job. She gets, she gets a decent salary. She certainly earns it. So even though she filed these charges against me, even though she ignored my first email and gave me a very vague response to the follow-up email, no ill will towards her whatsoever. And I think she's doing a great job, all things considered. But this is what happened. So I'm not sure exactly what I did with that email. I kept it on file with everything else. I showed it to my attorney. And it actually, just to fast forward to something that's related to this email, recently this summer, Victor Valesky sent me an email. And in his email, he said that contrary to my assertions, all of the complaints that I made regarding the transportation department were investigated, and none of them could be substantiated.
Wow.
And I posted that on the school community Facebook page. I couldn't believe that, because I had an email from the transportation department acknowledging the fact that there was a violation and that it was addressed. So why would the superintendent of schools be sending me such an email? It was just insane. And on the topic of insane emails from school administrators, this past February, we had another delayed opening. So I wasn't sure what to do. So I wrote Mr. Guliana an email. I said, well, I want to prevent anything from happening that was even close to what happened in February of 2022. So we have a delayed opening. If I elect to have my daughter wait inside my car at the bus stop, what is the best way to handle that so we make sure that the school bus driver doesn't miss my daughter again? And his response was that students are to be at their bus stop 10 minutes prior to the time the bus is supposed to arrive, and that the stop is not inside a parent's car. So basically, Mr. Guliana, the business administrator, who is also tasked with overseeing the transportation department, it's my interpretation that his position is that a parent having their kid in their car at the bus stop on a day where there's inclement weather is a violation of school policy. I mean, he certainly didn't say it in those words, but that's what I gathered from that email. And again, that's an email that I'm willing to share. So let's get back to where I left off in September of 22, where I sent the email to Joyce Forsberg. She replied that the incident was investigated and addressed. I started slowing down my complaints because there were just so many times that there were incidents where the seatbelts weren't required or whatever. But there was a time that it did change, and that was also in 2022. And I included Mike Gaskill on an email. So he was the principal at Hammarskjold.
Okay.
And I don't know how many emails I sent prior to that, but once I included Mike Gaskill and let him know, I didn't address him directly, I just wanted to make sure he was copied. Miraculously, Audrey Maxwell, the driver of the bus that left my daughter behind, all of a sudden, she starts asking the kids to put her seatbelts on. Wonderful.
Right.
So I sent an email just saying that, they made some meaningful progress here, but there were times following that seatbelts weren't required. And, it was just, I was so annoyed that they weren't answering me. Every time that there was a violation, I wanted to remind them again. I mean, guys, wake up.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Not only am I telling you that the seatbelts aren't being put on, you've got kids that aren't seated prior to the bus taking off. You've got a letter from a parent whose kid fell on the bus while she was wearing a boot because she wasn't seated.
Yeah.
Why aren't you paying attention? Why is nothing getting done here?
Do you think the messages got back to her when you were complaining?
I don't know what messages got to
Probably
me.
not.
Do you know what message got to me, though?
What?
Lori Locks was copied on all of this stuff.
Okay.
And the message that was sent to me was that Lori Locks had absolutely no control over these administrators. It looked to me, and still does, that rather than the board that's responsible for overseeing the administrators are overseeing the board.
Oh, wow.
And I made several posts about that. I sent some emails about that of, I don't know what kind of drama I stirred up on Facebook. I've made many, many posts, but that's what really stuck out to me. Here we have a school board president that has no power whatsoever. And I reached out to Lori and I asked her, separate and apart from the charges. So this was after we spoke on the phone and after she told me she couldn't get involved in the charges. I reached out to her independently. And I said, I am jumping around on the time a little bit here, but I think everyone will understand what the point of what I'm saying.
No, you're doing great.
So Lori Locks told me in an email that I said I can't communicate with the transportation department because this is Joyce Forsberg, it's the complaining witness. I'm a parent. I need to have someone to talk to within the transportation department in case there's a problem.
Sure.
All right. And it can't be the complaining witness. Please connect me with someone. She said she would. 2 weeks later, no response. I emailed her again. I posted this on Facebook recently. And she not only told me that she was going to send another email, she told me to let her know if no one got back to me.
Okay.
She made a commitment to me that she was going to get this taken care of. She wanted to know if it didn't get done. And I did let her know. And she stopped responding. So there's still safety concerns. The school board president is unable to get anyone within the administration or the transportation department to do anything. Now I'm getting really concerned. What's going on in this district? How can it be that we have a school board president that is so ineffective that she can't even set up a situation where I have someone appropriate to reach out to if there's a problem with the bus? What is Lori Locks afraid of? I wanted to know, and I sent an email to the whole board. I sent a Facebook message. I didn't know anyone on the board at the time. I didn't know Jeff. The only one that even responded to my message was Jeff Winston. And he gave my message, he gave it a little heart. Obviously, he liked the message. And that kind of sent a message to me like, all right, we have someone on the board at least that's paying attention.
Right.
Jeff and I didn't have any subsequent communication for a long time. In fact, there was, some months later, I confronted him on his own Facebook page. I asked him a question, and he didn't want to answer. He said, I'm not going to comment on pending legal matters. So I didn't ask him any more questions. So, it kind of, my emails calmed down a bit. I think I certainly sent Lori Locks some texts saying, Lori, why are you pretending to be the school board president? I've asked you for help. If you can't do your job, you should resign. And, if she certainly could have blocked me, she could have asked me to stop sending her text messages or whatever. But this is the president of the school board. This is an elected official.
Right.
All right. I was feeling so hurt and so isolated in this community. I had no one to turn to. I couldn't turn to the administration. I couldn't turn to the transportation department. I couldn't turn to the school board president. I felt ostracized in the community. And I didn't really realize what it felt like until the fall of 2022, when we had this issue with Kanye West, and people were holding up signs saying Kanye was right. So I'm a Jew. My stepfather's father, who's really a grandfather to me, was a Holocaust survivor. And the feeling that I got seeing these Kanye was right signs, that was the feeling that I had in the district. Wow. I didn't really identify how hurt I was feeling until I saw this open, blatant anti-Semitism, and that's how I was feeling.
Wow,
in
that's
my
really
school
powerful. Yeah.
But that's that's real. I mean, this is what was going on inside me. So it was a distraction to my business. It was a distraction to my family. I ended up hiring a meditation coach. I was so dysregulated from all of this. I mean, here I moved into a district that I thought was the greatest school district in Middlesex County.
A lot of people did.
Sure. We thought it was a blue ribbon district. Right? We thought it was a blue ribbon district.
1991.
Yeah, one of the, that's for the high school, right? One of the board candidates still represented.
When I graduated, 90, there were blue ribbon.
I graduated in 90 also. I thought we were moving into a blue ribbon district, and I'm getting all of this crazy nonsense. It was really bothering me. So aside from all the legal fees, now I have this meditation coach coming over, and we're like breathing through it. I mean, I have this big business that I need to run. I have a lot of people that I need to give direction to. I need to answer a lot of questions, and I've got school bus drama. Right? It was just wild. So the trial was on hold for a while, I'm not sure what emails I sent. It's all public record, and every email that I sent, I would share.
Right.
I've absolutely nothing to hide here.
No, you've been sharing them.
Yeah. I've shared some of them, but there were a lot of emails that went back and forth, but I don't want anyone to think that I'm trying to hide anything.
Right.
There was even one email that I sent to the board's attorney, and I was kind of angry that they wouldn't stand down. And I said, don't underestimate me, because I'm going to sue you. Okay. And suing would do damage to this district. Just stand down. I don't want you to do anything with the courts. I'll handle the courts. Just get out of my way and let me do what I have to do. They go and send the email to the prosecutor. The judge wouldn't even allow it to be. She thought it was ridiculous. She wouldn't allow it to be entered at trial. But
and the biggest thing is that they added on the criminal charges after you pleaded not guilty.
Right after.
I mean, I don't think, does anybody know that?
They do now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I had no idea. I mean, that changes a lot. It's like, I'm going to show you.
Right.
We're both. I mean, it's funny, when they showed your video, the woman prior, she did a great job. She was talking about anti-bullying the whole time. You know what I mean? And then they...
Rob, never in a million years would I think that a school administrator would bully me, and which would also bully my children at an open school board meeting. It was shocking. I started getting texts from, I wanted to be at the meeting that night. Thank God I wasn't. I started getting texts from a few people at the meeting about what's going on. My heart starts racing. I was in a panic. I was going back and forth with Jamie, with Jeff.
I know. I was sitting next to Jamie. We were looking at each other like, oh, Jesus.
Unbelievable. I mean, I couldn't believe it. And this was after, I was just found guilty this summer.
Right.
And we're filing we're going to file an appeal, and we want to see what that has to say. If we're successful on the appeal, and apparently my attorney, who's a wonderful guy, I went with a different attorney who was a former judge in Spotswood, and he was a former prosecutor. I knew him from when I had a business in New Brunswick, which is really what brought me to this area.
Yeah, pizza parlor.
Right, Marco's Pizza on Easton Avenue in New Brunswick, 95 to 99.
Oh, man.
So it's probably thousands of people in the East Brunswick area that have ate pizza from me that had no idea it was me.
That are the grease trucks.
The grease trucks didn't like me. We were doing 50-cent slices after midnight in 98 and 99. We were taking a lot of business from the grease truck. But that's really what brought me to this area. So where was I before we got to the pizzeria? Now you got me thinking about sauce and dough and pepperoni.
No, just how they added on the charges.
All right, so they added on the charges. So we're not, if we do prevail with the appeal on the disorderly persons, I want to see what the law has to say. We're certainly going to look into whether this was a malicious prosecution, and if it was, I'm sure whoever is responsible for that will be held accountable.
So the first thing I thought when they showed the video is the only reason why they showed it is because you're backing the slate pretty vocally. And that's the first thing that popped into my head.
That's obviously why, but I want to get to the larger issue on this. What they did to me, while I went through so much pain, and for a long time, we're talking about over 2 years of pain, and I always believe I like to look at the glass half full, and I like to solve problems, and I like to turn negative situations into positive ones. I finally figured out how to turn a very negative situation into something positive. And it was a process. It started with my attention was really drawn to the board when Jeff and Mark Sismar resigned.
Right.
And everything
Mine too.
So Mark Sismar was not nearly as vocal as Jeff. But I had respect for Jeff as a board member. I had read about him. I watched some of the meetings. He was really, when he had something to say, he would say it. And, that's what I think board members need to do. So he comes out and he starts talking about all of this deception and these cover-ups and what was going on with the board president. And the parallels to my situation were unbelievable.
Right.
At that point, I realized that my problem was a symptom of a much bigger problem.
That makes a lot of sense.
I was a victim. I'm certainly a victim here. And, I did break the law. I don't want to deny. I keep saying that because I don't want anyone to watch this and think I'm denying breaking the law.
And it's good you say more than one because people will forget right away.
Right. But I saw the parallels. I had a tremendous amount of respect for Jeff for pulling out of the board and doing what he did. I called him. Well, I sent him an email and I let him know how I felt about his service to the community. He and I had a conversation, and then we didn't talk for a while. I started going to more board meetings, and I heard Jamie Falco talk, and I was like, man, she's really smart. This is someone I'd like.
She's brilliant.
Brilliant. She's beyond brilliant.
No, I know. We became good friends, and
she's a friend of mine as well.
Yeah.
And she did these lenses for me.
Hey, me too. I got them over there.
I'm seeing better than I've seen in years. I didn't even know I could see this.
I can see close now with my contacts.
Right. So. Jamie it's great having her in the community.
It really is.
We sat down and talked for a little while, and I decided if she's going to run for the board, I'm going to be there to support her.
That's awesome.
And then I started learning about Lou Figueroa, and I've gotten to know him. And I when Jen got up and spoke about what was really going on, it seemed to me like they were disguising Lou Figueroa's dismissal as a budgetary reason. But then Jen Figueroa really shed some light on what was going on. It seems to me, I have no way of knowing. I wasn't at any closed session board meetings. I didn't read any documents, but it seems to me like it's possible that Lou's dismissal had a little something to do with a personality conflict with Victor Valesky. Yeah. But having gotten, just listening to all the people that got up to talk about how great Lou is, talking to Lou on my own on the phone, and listening to him that day in Jeff's barn, I was blown away. Now I understand why he's been such a hero to so many people in the community. Yeah. And we've got Anna, who I thought she was a little kooky at first.
She'll admit it, she is. I love her.
She was at that meeting, at the budget meeting, and she's like going on about, how important the music is. I got a real kick out of her, but, she and I had some text communications, and I decided that rather than, just being angry and resentful about the way that I was treated, and I really think, I'm part of the community. Maybe they should have sat down with me and had a conversation and said, what led to this? And
that's always better.
Always better. It's always better to be to work towards a solution than to work towards a problem.
And that's how you can know the leadership is poor, because people want to be heard. And once people are heard, they're going to give you the benefit of the doubt.
Right. I think you're putting it mildly on the board leadership. It's now we've, I don't know if any of this is true. I saw some of what Jack Levitt posted about principals not being allowed to assign classrooms. There's the coffee maker issue with the teachers.
Yeah, Burgermeister Bernie.
These teachers are, from what I've talked to some staff members, and none of them had anything good to say. But I think the fact that we've had so many people come forward and speak negatively about the administration and Valesky's leadership and Guliana, and absolutely no one, zero people, with the exception of Lori Locks, who constantly and chronically speaks about all of the wonderful things Valesky is doing. No one, not one person, has come forward to say anything positive about Valesky.
Right.
I don't know how to explain that other than the fact that, maybe there is a problem with Valesky.
Yeah, absolutely. And there hasn't been one teacher. Teacher's been reaching out to me because of the Eyes on EB.
Right.
And not one teacher is having they're all miserable. I mean, it's very concerning to the point where it's unrepairable almost.
Well, let's look at the
short term.
We have a very strong foundation in the schools.
Yeah.
Because we do have great principals. We have a fabulous curriculum. My kids are thriving. That I do think that what we have, the problems we have now, can be repaired. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a joint effort between the community and the people running for the board.
Right.
And the current people that are on the board. Right. We need to make smart choices in November. I'm not, it's our 4 candidates. They're not the only ones in the world that could solve these problems. I just think that given this current set of circumstances, they are by far and away the best qualified to address the problems that we're currently facing.
Absolutely.
These are serious problems.
Yeah.
They've all stepped up and said that it's unacceptable, and they want to change the culture of the board. And I think we saw on Thursday night just how bad that culture is. I mean, when you have one of the top administrators at the school who looks, I can only assume that this presentation was sanctioned by the superintendent and probably the board president. When you have an attack on a parent at a school board meeting, that's a sign of a dysfunctional culture. It's toxic.
And there's so many more important things to talk about and concerns.
We have problems to solve. We have budget problems to solve. I mean, every problem has a solution, but you have to work towards the solution, right? You can't just focus on problems from the past, things that I can't change anything from the past, right? I want to look forward and see how can we do things now that are going to make things better going forward. Mm-hmm. So the choices that we make in this election, we have a unique opportunity here because there's 4 seats open.
There's 4 seats open, and we have at least 4 candidates that are really speaking up. And
there are some other candidates that are speaking up, and I think I've had some communication with Wilbur, limited communication. I'm not really sure on what he's going to bring to the table, but he seems like a wonderful guy. He's certainly passionate about what he's doing. I tried to communicate with Heather James. I really tried. Mm-hmm. Honestly, she seems like the sweetest woman in the world. I wish I knew her. What better person could we have in the community?
Right. Oh, no, I agree. Absolutely. And that's the thing. The last election is when I started getting into local politics.
Right.
And I'm in some different kind of group threads. And one of the things I realized right away is that people were voting for people just because they're nice. Competence had nothing to do with anything.
That might happen here.
And I'm scared. I'm actually
James
worried.
Should be the president of the PTA. She should be the president of every PTA. I mean, she's amazing. I mean, she seems very approachable. Unfortunately, she wouldn't respond to me. I mean, what was most disturbing, I think, was that she made a post about emphasizing the importance of communication.
Right.
And then when I asked her a question relating to some problems within the transportation department and offering up some documentation, there was no communication on the same post.
Yeah.
So I think I guess that's a bit of a red flag. I mean, and it can't be because the current board members are forbidden from speaking to me, because I made a comment to Barbara Reese, and who I'm very grateful to for her service at B'nai Shalom. And I said that in my post. I just wanted to know what I wanted to get an understanding of what it is that she does on the board. And she definitely didn't give me a clear answer, but I believe she's well intended. I just don't think she's qualified to be on the board at this particular point in time.
Right. Yeah. No. You need smart people. I was talking to Jamie the other day, and one of the reasons why I love her as a candidate, she's smart, right? Like, she's very smart, and we need smart people. We need people that can read something, understand it, understand the budgets. I can't do that.
And they're all so much different from each other.
Right. Oh, they are.
Even though Lou and Jen are married, I honestly don't know Jen quite as well.
Right.
But Lou does Lou. And I mean, this guy is like Mr. Community.
Yeah.
And, Jen is, I love the fact that Jen was able to get up in front of a group of people and confront Valesky for what she perceived was happening with Lou.
Yeah.
And she's got, 2 or 3 decades of experience.
And that's key, because you need some people who are familiar with the inside, how the inside works, what's needed, and you need some people from the outside. That's why the slate is just so. And Lou just knows where all the bodies are buried.
We need people that are willing to stand up, speak out, and talk back.
Yeah.
That isn't something that I just came up with. I actually read a book in college that may have changed the trajectory of my life, called Stand Up, Speak Out, and Talk Back.
Right.
And it works.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
So I really do think that any problems that we're facing in the district can be corrected. I think we can learn from the problems. And
you need the right people in. It's so important right now. You need to slate it.
And you know what? Now I'm involved. And had it not been for what happened with the school bus, I never would have gotten involved. I never would have this passion to help these people. I never would have gotten to know them, and I wouldn't be supporting them the way that I am. And it's not just going to be for this campaign. Going forward, I'm going to be involved in supporting the candidates that I think are going to best serve our community.
And I can tell you, just because I've been working with all of them a lot, they're all wonderful people, and they're all very competent, smart people. Like, if they're in, it's going to be, you will see changes.
Look at the passion that Anna Braun puts
into
awesome. All of her videos and everything that she says. I mean, and she's got insight, not only from when she was a teacher. She's got a daughter who was, and that was very brave.
Yeah, that was
forward, having a daughter in the district.
Yeah.
So I hope that her daughter isn't facing any retaliation. Now, I mean, retaliation was, I think, a bit of a myth.
Jen brought that up She brought that up in one of her videos. It's a real thing.
Now we have retaliation on video. And not only was there retaliation towards me, there was a cover-up.
Right.
They made believe that they didn't record a portion of the video where they made a significant violation, and they put up some kind of disclaimer. I mean, we'll get all of that from... I'm not sure where we're going to go with it. It's just another example of how this administration operates and how little control the current board has over the administration.
Why is that, you think?
I'll tell you why. Because these guys who are administrators make a lot of money, and these salaries are very, very difficult to replace. When you're in the private sector, when you're a smart guy in the private sector and you're into business, sky's the limit. All right. So these guys, they work hard in business. They certainly make a lot more money than most of the people do, than anyone in the district. And these are some of the highest paid administrators in the state. But I can't help but think they must be somewhat frustrated knowing that people who work, who've been working for less time than them, who work less hours in a day, are in charge of $200 million budgets and make a lot more than they do.
Right.
I mean, sometimes 10, 20 times more than they make. And they're in these jobs. So there's got to be some level of frustration.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But it's, it's tough to really understand what's going on without knowing everything. I'd love to be able to, to look at the budget and discuss it with some people that have some insight there. And maybe we can have, a follow-up podcast focusing on things other than the September 26th board meeting and what led up to that. But I see much brighter days for our school district going forward, and I'm still proud to have my kids here. I'm bullish on East Brunswick.
That's good,
as I would say.
You're not going to hedge it.
I'm not going to. Yeah, certainly not. I don't have any. There's some board members that I certainly respect. Current board members. I've reached out to a couple of them. I've reached out to Vicky and Heather numerous times. Not because I want to pester them. I mean, I'm sure they feel like I'm pestering them. I'm reaching out to them because I thought that, to me, they seem like the board leadership. They're the ones that should know what's going on. They should know how I'm feeling. And they both seem like brilliant, accomplished women. I have a lot of respect for their accomplishments, for the fact that they're willing to volunteer their time on the board.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. But look at Heather Gloss is the one person on the board that I heard say the word Zen. I'm very into Zen. That really caught my attention.
Right.
And Vicky's been on the board for 20 some years. Right. So they're vested in their community.
Right.
They care. But there's a disconnect. There's some dysfunction here. I want to know what it is.
I think he summed it up really well before, how maybe there's just not the right people at this time.
They're certainly not the right people, and I think when we have people that are leading the Board of Education, we need to know why they're there and what's influencing them. And I made some very controversial posts about Lori Locks. Right? I know that her, and I'm not accusing anyone of any nefarious behavior. I'm not accusing anyone of any fraud. I'm not accusing anyone of anything bad whatsoever. I have nothing to base that on. What I'm pointing at is that we need to ask the questions. If you're on the Board of Education, you're the president of the Board of Education, and simultaneously to that, you're on a charity board with the mayor. And when your husband is a loan broker at a major brokerage house, and he's involved with developers that are built with Vermilla and Russo, and there's a lot of money made in these transactions. So we've got all kinds of moving parts here, and the person at the head of the Board of Education is, well, in bed with, married to someone who's involved with business in the district, and she's involved with the mayor. We need to be asking these questions.
I didn't even know that.
Right, and I'm not suggesting that there's anything wrong going on.
Right, of course not.
It's irresponsible of the community to fail to ask the questions. We need to know who's on the board, why are you here, what are your motivations, and you need to be transparent about what's going on. There's a lack of transparency, and due to the fact that she's ignored me, many inquiries about school safety. And now she accused me of harassing her. I never harassed.
Right.
I never called her beyond our second call. I never showed up at her house. I never called her work. I never used any foul language other than I may have said on one thing. I may have said effed up situation, but I didn't do anything that would have that I feel would have constituted harassment. I wanted answers.
Yeah.
All right. There's things that aren't happening with regard to school bus safety. Yeah, I'm going to keep emailing the school board president who committed to me that she was going to hook me up with someone. We have that email, and then fell down on the job. Of course, I'm going to ask those questions. The last few emails, I haven't included her on. The last time I made a post with her name, I didn't tag her. I did tag her following the last board meeting. I wanted to show the email where she invited me to email her. If no one reached out to me, I tagged her on that. That was the last one I tagged her on. I will not tag her again going forward. If I need to mention her name, I will. She is still the school board president. But if she did feel harassed or hurt.
She could have blocked you too.
What?
She could have blocked you.
Of course she could block me. She could block if I was sending her text messages. The last time I sent her a text message was months and months ago, and I said this will be the last time I'm sending you a text message, and I haven't sent her a text message since. But of course she could have blocked me, or she could have said, "Mark, please stop reaching out to me. It's making me feel uncomfortable." But none of that happened. So I think her accusing me of harassment was a little bit of a stretch. But
yeah, it was the wrong choice of words. A lot of words have changed meanings over the years. Harassing now is whatever, asking the same question over and over.
But I want to apologize to anyone that I've hurt throughout this. If Audrey Maxwell felt startled at the time that I stopped the bus,
sure, I'm
sorry for making her feel startled. If Joyce Forsberg was startled, I'm sorry for that. If any of this has caused anyone to be distracted from things that they could be doing that are more productive, I apologize for that as well.
Absolutely.
All right. My intentions at this point are to help the most qualified candidates get onto the school board, change the culture of the board so that our kids have a healthier learning environment. And that means happy teachers, happy principals, and all that goes with that.
Absolutely.
That's all I'm interested at this point. I'm putting this school bus thing behind me.
That's good for you. And I'm glad you got to tell your side of the story. I learned a lot, certainly, and we've been talking about it. So any last words? You want to? Who are you going to vote for? For the
I think we know who I'm going to vote for, and it's not just because I like them. And I really hope that people understand that some of the teachers in our district are in pain.
Yeah.
And I think some of the principals are in pain.
Sure.
And that's going to affect the kids.
Yeah.
If you perceive there to be a problem in our district, you need to vote for the people, the candidates that are running for the board that are going to affect the changes that we need. All right. Just because you're friends with someone in the PTA or you know them in a social group or whatnot, that doesn't mean they're qualified to be on our school board, especially not during these times where we have, teachers feeling intimidated, a budget shortfall, we haven't had I'd love it if we got that blue ribbon status back. Right? Every school, nice. We can apply every 5 years for each school. I'm not sure how the process is done, but I know it's limited to 5 years. And we haven't had any since Valesky's been the superintendent. I think the last one was Memorial.
Right.
And the high school, dates back to when a couple of years after Reagan was president.
Yeah. Right? We're still bragging about it. It's unbelievable.
Well, let's work towards bringing it back.
Right. And we got a lot of smart people in this town, and we just need good leadership. And
absolutely,
we're on the way.
And I'm very grateful to all of the time that you've donated to.
Thank you.
It's been a lot of fun. The candidates.
I gotta say it again. All 4 of them are amazing people and very, very smart.
They sure are.
They are. I mean,
they sure are. I'm very grateful to Jeff. For and I've created a new friendship with Jeff. I didn't know Jeff prior to this at all, and just going to his house and meeting his family and the dog. I saw this. I only saw the board member side of Jeff. I didn't see this loving, welcoming family that opens up their house to the community.
Sure.
That is, they just keep giving and giving and giving. That's the impression that I get.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've had a few people say to me, "Well, I'm not. I don't want to vote for someone that's being controlled by an." That's not the impression that I got, and
it's not. I'm on the group text.
But you were right there when he said, "I'm not going to have anything to do with any of this."
Yeah.
Once the election is over, but to his credit, he used his time.
Yeah, it's a lot of time
that he could have been spending with his family, time that he could have been spending on his career to help put this slate together, to be the admin of the page. He is an amazing guy to have in the community, and I'm very grateful to him.
Yeah, no, he's look. Life is about making an impact, right? And if you're not making an impact and you're just complaining all day, then what good are you?
And he does. I mean, none of us are perfect,
mm-hmm.
But I think if you're looking at what's good, what's bad, what do we want in our community, and what do we not want in our community?
Right.
I think we want Jeff in our community.
Yeah.
I think we certainly want you in our community.
I appreciate that.
And I'm proud to be a part of the community.
Yeah, no.
And I'm sorry that the way that I got involved in the community was from such a negative incident. But I'm grateful to
turn it around. You made it into something good.
That's the way to do it.
About.
That's the way to do it. That's the example I want to set for my kids. And I'm looking forward to the next. We still have another 7+ years with my younger one, and I expect that my kids will be part of this community for many years to come.
Awesome, man. Well, it's great having you.
Great being here.
I appreciate you, and thank you for everything you're doing to help get this, to help make changes. It's important.
Thank you as well. It's been great getting to know you.
Yeah, great.
I didn't know you until all this.
Yeah. I was one of those guys that never had any local friends, but now it's changing. So it's been a lot of fun.
I feel like I made a new friend in you.
Awesome, man.
And
same here.
I'll probably talk to you later today.
Great. Awesome.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Rob. All right. Take care.
I think that went great.
I think we killed it.
Yeah. So, what was the sentence?
All right. So, just so we cut out early. I said I was going to say what the sentence was. So after, it was about a 4-hour trial. Actually, it may have been closer to 5 hours with the breaks. It was surprisingly long. The judge wouldn't give a ruling on that day. I know that the prosecutor was pressing for, he wanted my license suspended. He wanted me to be in all kinds of programs. He was really, I think if it was up to him, he would have locked me up. So the judge scheduled the sentencing hearing it was about a month later.
Okay.
This wasn't in person. This was on Zoom. And, of course, Bernardo Guliana was there. He was there during the trial.
Of course.
The whole time. And the judge read through all the charges. And, it was disheartening to hear because I did break the law. Apparently, whatever it was, the law is the law. And she referred to what I did as vigilantism. And who am I to argue? That's up for if anyone's going to argue, it's going to be my attorney to the appellate court. So the sentence that was handed down was a fine. What she did was she merged all the charges so I wouldn't get fined on every charge. She merged it so I would get the highest traffic violation charge, and that was a nominal amount of money, and then the higher disorderly persons charge. So it was $1,000 charge fine on the disorderly persons, and it was, I don't know, a few $100s on the traffic. I don't have to pay those fines until the appeal process is over, and I'm you know, if the fine is the fine, I'm happy to pay it. But it was, once the prosecutor started, objecting and carrying on about the sentence, and the judge kind of rolled her eyes, and it was kind of like, she clearly didn't think I was a threat to society or that I tried to kill anyone. She was required to determine whether or not I was guilty or not guilty of the charge and impose a sentence. And I think there were minimum sentencing guidelines. So she gave me those fines. I did feel, I was disappointed, of course, that I wasn't found not guilty. That would have been ideal. But I felt a sense of vindication that I wasn't punished as if I had done some kind of a terrible violent crime, or that I had endangered the welfare of children. I was very careful when I did this. The video shows what it shows, but the judge listened to the testimony. She said, "You're guilty, you're getting a fine," and that was the end of it. So
all that.
All of this was thousands and thousands of dollars in legal fees from me, and I'm sure for the district. And I certainly learned a lesson.
Yeah, no, you grow from it, and you know how to handle it next time.
Absolutely.
Would you do that again? Would you pull over a bus again?
Well,
Did you hear what happened in Franklin or wherever, right? Did you?
Well, there we had, in Franklin Township, where the kid was strangled and killed.
Yeah. Well, by the seatbelt, right?
So I think if someone had noticed that the driver wasn't paying attention, or noticed that there was something wrong with the aid, and they pulled that bus over, that kid would still be alive.
Absolutely.
That's not what happened here. So had there been something wrong with the driver, I'd have been a hero. There was nothing wrong with the driver. So it's hard to say. I don't think I would, be due to the fact that I've been convicted of this once. Even if I see a driver doing something negligent and it's, there could be a potential danger, I'd have to say no. I'm not going to intervene.
Call the cops and just follow the bus.
I'm just going to call the police and hope that nothing happens.
Yeah. No.
Our society isn't perfect. It can't be. Not everything is going to work out exactly right. This is the way it is, and going forward, I will not be pulling over any buses.
Absolutely, and thanks for clarifying that. And Mark, he was in the car ready to go, and he was like, "Oh, got one more thing."
Well, we said at the beginning
that
we were going to, say what the sentence was at the end, so I wanted to make sure that we followed through on that.
Great.
So thanks for setting all this back up.
No problem.
All right.
Okay,
Take care, Rob.
Bye.